Greetings, welcome back to Black Bear News, where everything is connected. Waiting for Rockfin to start, my Rockfin people. My apologies. I sat down to do the video and realized I hadn't created a live stream. I usually create a live stream at least an hour before the show or more. And I didn't do any of that. I didn't even create a thumbnail. All right, we are live on Rockfin, ROKFIN.com. Please follow me on Rockfin. You can watch all my live streams on Rockfin ad-free. And Rockfin has a new feature where you can tip the host, a $2 tip. Although I don't know if you can see it during the live stream, but after the live stream, it is available. It's available to tip the host. There's like a $2 tip feature. I have no idea how it works. So anyways, it's kind of like a super chat. So if you're watching me on Rockfin, you can give me a tip on Rockfin. There are no ads on Rockfin. And you can hang out with me in some other select few hardy Rockfinners on the Rockfin channel. I got a couple people watching me on Rockfin. How you doing, guys? Also want to let you know tomorrow on the 11 a.m. live stream, I will have Jim Massa in the house, who will be hanging out with me talking about climate science. You probably have seen Jim Massa on Sandy's channel on Environmental Coffee House. But yes, Jim Massa will be on tomorrow, and we will be discussing the situation in the Arctic and other things around climate change, of course. Jim Massa also has a YouTube channel that you can check out, Science Talk with Jim Massa. And he, does various videos around different subjects. He has a background, I believe, in oceanography, among other things, has been involved in climate science, worked for the University of Alaska, I think it was. Anyways, Jim Massa, I really like Jim Massa's talks. I've seen him speak a few times on Environmental Coffee House and also on his own videos, and he gives a very solid presentation around climate change. So yeah. So come hang out tomorrow. We're going to talk with Jim Massa. Yeah, Science Talk with Jim Massa is his channel. Had Valmer is asking if I'm seeing fire and smoke. No, I am personally not seeing fire and smoke, but I know that there is a bushfire. Yes, Jacob Gordon, Jim Massa is a good guy. Love his insights. Yeah, I like, he's just got a very knowledgeable, calm, scientific approach. Raza, thank you for the super chat. Human Love Solidarity says most YouTubers are using Rockfin. A lot of YouTubers are using Rockfin. It's kind of the place to be. Oh, nice. Ken Lundgren has tipped me $20 on Rockfin. Thank you, Ken Lundgren. I really appreciate your contribution to the channel. Thank you, Ryan Gorman, Jacob Gordon, Ken Lundgren are all watching on Rockfin. Thank you so much. And I'll have some proper thumbnails up for these videos in a few. But I'm actually going to do, after this video, I'm going to come back and do another video, political video. So we're going to talk about climate change for a little bit, and then we're going to go into some politics. Rich Diana says Massa is learned on the subject of CC. Yes, he is. All right, let's get into it. It's getting late in the day already. And I can't see this live stream for whatever reason. Oh, here we go. Sorry for my live stream. The thumbnail is the same as yesterday. I just didn't have time to change it today. So yes, what Had was talking about, there's a brush fire in Orange County. It has been extremely dry here for the last at least week. Extremely dry, 10% humidity, 11% humidity. And where are we at now? Well, we can check it out. I can let you know. Currently 10% humidity, so very, very dry. Conditions, it's been relatively warm, seasonably, it's been in the 70s, close to 80 at least. If you're standing in the sun, it feels like it's 80 degrees or hotter. So it's fairly warm for, now it's early December, warm and dry. So of course these conditions would be ripe for a bushfire. Brush fire sparked by a house fire has grown to more than 1,000 acres in Silverado Canyon. Mandatory evacuations have been ordered for residents of Silverado Canyon, Williams Canyon, and Majeska Canyon. Orange County Fire Authority first responded to the fire late Wednesday night. And maybe we will watch this.
Hey guys, good morning to you. We have watched over the past few minutes as this entire canyon has gone up in flames. We're talking about flames as high as 50 to 60 feet high, driven by wind gusts up to 70 to 80 miles per hour. You see all of these embers blowing all over the place, sparking new fires. Where we are, a very remote canyon, but on the other side of it, a very heavily populated neighborhood. And it's unclear at this hour, as these flames continue to come over this mountainside, how many people evacuated in the middle of the night. This fire, the bonfire, sparked last night because of a house fire that spread to the dry brush. It's unclear how that house caught on fire because this area had its power preemptively shut down to protect against fires like this. Firefighters are unable to attack it from the sky, so they're here on the ground trying to contain it. 0% contained at this point, at least 1,500 acres. As this fire continues to burn, the bad news here, the red flag warnings will continue to at least Saturday, with more high winds predicted up to 70 miles per hour in the coming days. Gail?
Boy, special
All right.
Jonathan Bigliotti.
So that's what's going on. Not too far away from me. It's called the bonfire. So yeah, the conditions are right for many wildfires to be created. Luckily we've only had one. We didn't have any for this entire previous week when we had very dry conditions, but now those conditions are starting to take their toll and create what they were assumed to be, able to create. Anyways, we're moving on to this story out of New Zealand from yesterday, December 2nd, climate emergency declaration by New Zealand. That's not necessarily the surprising part. Many countries have declared a climate emergency. That is not necessarily groundbreaking. What is somewhat groundbreaking is that the government includes a commitment to 2025 targets. So they're talking about carbon neutrality, or what some would call net zero, right? Somehow containing whatever carbon you might be emitting, getting to net zero. Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern has committed the government and public sector to going carbon neutral by 2025. Okay, so the government and the public sector, so not the private sector. So this is, not, it's a fairly, we're going to call this a fairly hefty commitment because no other country is really talking about 2025. Some places and state of California has made some efforts to do some things by 2035. So, on some levels I applaud this. However, it's just the government and the public sector. It does not include the private sector, which probably includes a lot of not just emissions, but a lot of climate destruction. Hold on one second. I'm seeing some super chats here. I'm going to just say what's up to the super chats. Thank you so much. Raza, Human Love Solidarity. Human Love Solidarity says Jim McHenry channel is good for climate info. Had Valmer, Kevin, you daily do this. Strong commitment to creating a awake community. Thank you, Had. And Raza, thank you again for the super chat. We have 72 watching, 26 likes. Let's go back to this story. So yeah, I'm not going to outright say that this is a weak commitment to some kind of action on climate change, although I'd say it's, the date 2025 is at least the strongest part of this, but I'd say the overall commitment is fairly weak. So glad to see that a country out there is talking about, climate action in a realistic time frame of 2025. But, we have to talk about going maybe not carbon neutral, but carbon negative or no emissions by 2025. And we need to talk about that in the whole of society. And also, again, not to downplay this too much, but New Zealand is a small country, small population. So this shouldn't be difficult to reach, right? This is, they're a smaller country. There's less to, have to steer or manage into this commitment as opposed to a country like the US or China or India or some other country that's with a larger population and a larger infrastructure. Ardern has moved a motion in Parliament this afternoon, which would see New Zealand join 32 other nations in formally acknowledging the global crisis. So maybe they haven't done this yet. I thought that they already did. Maybe I'm wrong. The motion was passed shortly before 4 p.m. with Labour, the Greens, and Te Pāti Māori all voting in support. I'm assuming that is an indigenous party, Te Pāti Māori, all voting in support, and National and ACT opposed. I'm assuming those are the right-wing parties. Sorry if I'm not incredibly well informed on New Zealand politics. Includes a promise to set an example by reducing its own waste and emissions. That's good. That's laudable. That's something. Parliament will show leadership and demonstrate what is possible to other sectors of the New Zealand economy by reducing the government's own emissions and becoming carbon neutral government by 2025. Okay, so hey, cheers to New Zealand for at least having the conversation and the guts to have the conversation, and also the willingness to put a shorter timeline on this action. Again, they're a small nation. Will this really affect other nations' commitments to, climate change, moving up their timelines, or, creating a bigger commitment in other governments? I kind of doubt it. I highly doubt it. But at least, it sets some kind of precedent. So, but then, she goes on to say the public sector needs to be and will be an exemplar that sets the standard we all need to achieve by 2050. So then she goes, then she kind of roundabouts to kind of the worldwide accepted date of 2050. This is what most, if not all, major countries are committing themselves to, is the date of 2050 being carbon neutral or net zero or whatever. And again, that's way too far away. That's too little, too late, very far away. And in that 30 years, imagine all the foot dragging and all the foot dragging that's going to happen on the way to that. I imagine all these countries are going to set a date of 2050, and then by 2030 or 2035, everybody's going to realize, oh, we're way off. And so 2050 is going to, that guardrail of 2050 is going to get blown very quickly. But we'll see. We'll see how this goes for New Zealand. The program also includes an immediate focus on phasing out the largest and most active coal boilers, excuse me, let me say that correctly, a requirement for government agencies to purchase electric vehicles and reduce the size of their car fleet, and for a green standard for public sector buildings. That's okay, so excellent. They're going to purchase electric vehicles, but they are also going to reduce the size of their car fleet, and that's good. That's great. I mean, if we're talking about, they're not talking about replacing their entire fleet with electric vehicles. They're actually talking about reduction in cars. That's something. It's something. Again, it's too little, too late, possibly, but it's something. So I'm gonna give the government of New Zealand a very little high five on at least talking about a more of a realistic timeline as far as trying to tackle climate change. And in England, moving over to England, they are also talking about action on climate change. They have already declared a climate emergency that happened last year. Climate change. Prime Minister aims for world-leading UK emissions cuts. Let's see what this is about. Will this be anything substantial? Who knows? This is from today. The UK Prime Minister is set to declare one of the most ambitious targets in the world for tackling climate change. And BBC News understands Boris Johnson's goal will be to cut greenhouse gas emissions by 68 or 69% by the end of the decade, based on 1990 levels. Okay, well, that's a bit of a better timeline. We're talking about the end of the decade. This will mean an even faster pace of decarbonization for industries, transport, and homes. Well, all right. We will, at least they're talking about it. At least they're acknowledging it. At least they're saying something will be done in some sort of quick fashion. Okay. Maybe all these protests and maybe all these voices clamoring for action on climate change might be having some kind of effect. Who knows? Again, is it going to be substantial? Is it really going to change the way we live? Are they going to encourage people to live differently? Are they going to encourage some degrowth in their own economy, or degrowth in in their consumerism, or degrowth in their population? Are they going to encourage any of these things? I highly doubt it, but we'll see. It might, for instance, mean a faster switch away from gas boilers for home heating, or it could, under another scenario, lead to the phase out of gas guzzling SUVs. Had Vollmer, let's all get ambitious. Indeed. Yeah, and we I gotta give it up for Boris Johnson for at least, acknowledging and taking some action. So, but will this really have any effect on the larger picture? We'll see. Doubtful at best, but the targets are known as nationally determined contributions, or NDCs. They're at the heart of the Paris Agreement, with international pact signed in 2016 that's intended to cut emissions with the aim of keeping global temperature rise well under 2°C. Okay, well, that's where it kind of goes off the rails a little bit. Because we just read something yesterday from the UN stating that even if all the countries met their climate goals, that we would hit 2.1 C, and that we would do that fairly quickly. And so that's called not meeting the goal, and that's not well under 2C. So there is no well under 2C that we're going to make, and that again is not being admitted to by the governments of the world, and they should probably do that quickly. They should probably let people know we're going to hit 2C, and there's very, very little chance that we're going to stay under 2C. So when you see this kind of language that we're going to keep global temperature rise well under 2C, no, we're not. We would have to do something insanely radical to do that if there is even a chance of doing that. So if we had a chance in hell of staying well under 2C, that would be like grounding all air travel right now, today, tomorrow, by 2022. Taking a majority of the cars off the road worldwide by 2022. That would be the only way that you would ever on God's green earth have a chance to stay well under 2C, and you still wouldn't even be able to do that, even if you did all those things. So again, they're lying, and they're not telling people the truth, and that really sucks. So yeah, all of this, 2050 cutting emissions by 68% by 2030, all these scenarios, phasing out gas cars by 2035, all these scenarios, nope, not going to do it. Not going to happen. Sorry. You're being lied to. NDCs represent the commitments by each country under the Paris Act to reduce their own national emissions and adapt to the impacts of climate change. Mr. Johnson hopes that the UK's new targets will set an example to other nations, hopefully, which will join a virtual climate pledges summit on December 12th. The virtual event will occur in place of the annual UN climate talks, which were set to have taken place in Glasgow this year, but were postponed because of COVID-19. The UK has assumed the presidency at the 26th Conference of the Parties, or COP, meeting in partnership with Italy. The full meeting will take place at the end of next year. The 68% cut was deemed by the EU to be Britain's fair share towards combating climate change. Well, again, we're worrying about, my fair share. What about other people? What are they doing? Again, we'll see, if this even comes to pass. We'll see how much of this comes to pass. The 2030 data is important because CO2 concentrations in the atmosphere are cumulative, right? Which is one of the reasons why we will not stay well under 2C or whatever it is they're talking about, unless they just start making up numbers and start telling people, we're still stuck at 1.1 in 2030, right? They'll try to do that, and it's what they're trying to do right now. And some people think that we're already past 2C, considering the carbon equivalent that is in the atmosphere already. We have over 500 parts per million of carbon equivalent. That's other gases besides CO2. Nobody ever talks about that. They don't ever want to talk about that and what that means for the future of the heating of the planet. Anyways, net zero refers to cutting greenhouse gas emissions as far as possible and balancing any further releases by removing an equivalent amount from the atmosphere. Only a handful of countries have submitted revised NDCs so far, and there you go. And that's where we're really at. Let's see, people of Rockfin, how you doing? I'm gonna tune in. What's up? Kameshwari Kate has tipped me on Rockfin. Thank you so much, Kameshwari Kate. You guys are awesome. You rock. Let's go Rockfin. Ryan Gorman says, good morning, Doom Rockfinners. Urban Hermit, hi Rockfin Bears. Kameshwari Kate says, I didn't know that we could tip on Rockfin. Well, it's brand new. What percentage is taken from the tip? I don't know. I have no idea. They just showed up yesterday. Literally showed up yesterday, and that's why I'm telling you guys about it today. So if you're on Rockfin, you can check that out. I didn't really poke around and see if they took a percentage or how we even get the tip. I'm not really sure. Ryan Gorman, is multi. So we have the multitaskers, people watching on several channels and also doing other things. I applaud you guys for hanging out with me. Thank you. On Rockfin, and we got 89 watching, 36 likes on YouTube. Please like up the video. Thank you guys for hanging out with me on the YouTubes. Yeah, Andy the Gardener, net zero is BS. No nation is willingly going to take its foot off the gas. Yeah, and and that's kind of, that's my pessimistic take on the whole thing, is that all of this is a lot of nice, words and, commitments. We're going to commit to net zero, right? All of this is a nice, well-meaning, well-intentioned kind of stuff. It's a lot of words right now, and we're going to have to wait for a few years to see what is actually going to be done and how quickly it can be done, and what, can these commitments be met? Right? Yes, Sandy, that's like a super chat. On Rockfin now has a super chat feature so that you can tip the host while they're rambling along. Okay, guys, I want to try and cover a few more things. I'm almost out of time on this video. Like I said, I will be coming back and doing some political yapping. This is actually quite old. Maybe I talked about this, maybe I didn't, but I didn't really talk about it in depth. But I think it's I just thought this headline was kind of funny, as you might also think is kind of funny. Joe Biden plans to label countries as climate outlaws for failing to address climate change. Yeah, let me show you real quick if this will show up. Where the U.S. sits, where the people of the United States sits as far as resource use. The people of the United States, or the United States as a whole, whether it's the wealthy or the poor, or the poorer or the wealthy, or all of them all together, if you live in the U.S., you use the most resources of any other nation on this planet. And I still can't tell whether you're able to see this or not. Maybe not. Maybe I need to do this. Let's see if we can show you this. Here we go. All right, now you can see this. We use the most resources of any other nation on the planet. All, combined, whatever you want. The wealthy, the poor, the military, everybody in the United States together as a collective uses the most resources. So somehow the president of this United States, who are using 5 Earths worth of resources, more than any other country on the planet, is going to run around and tell other nations that they are climate outlaws. Do you see the problem with this? Does anybody see the problem with this? See the disconnect? Do you see how people could be other nations would be like, F you, Jack, and your authoritarian, your authority to tell other people that they're climate outlaws. When we just got done with the Trump administration that said climate change was a hoax and ran the environment into the rails, all of a sudden we have a new president and he's going to decide, well, we're taking climate change seriously. So that means that we're going to be able to tell other people that they're climate outlaws. Okay. No hypocrisy whatsoever going on here. None. And Brazil might be at the top of the list. So Brazil, using 1.7 Earths worth of resources, is going to be told by the United States, who uses 5 Earths worth of resources, that they are climate outlaws. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Joe Biden has promised to recommit the U.S. to the Paris. Oh, just because we recommitted, that means that we're gonna be the climate police of the planet. Yeah, that's what that means. And leverage the international community to urge reluctant countries to get on board with the target of keeping global average temperatures from rising above 2°C. Again, this is just ridiculous. This whole keeping, we're going to keep temperatures from rising above 2°C. And it's your fault that we're going to get there, right? It's not our fault. It's your fault. Somebody else's fault. This is just wild, though. I just, yeah. Again, maybe we should worry about leading and doing what we need to do. And have we made any commitments as a country? Commitments as, right now the UK is more radical on action than the US, even with a new, president-elect. I know for a fact that Biden's climate plan is probably not as radical as what Boris Johnson is committing to. So, what even are you talking about, Biden? But I'm sure a lot of well-meaning, liberal type Democrats are probably like, yeah, you get him. You go get that Bolsonaro. You call him an outlaw because we're the best. Anyways, Bolsonaro reacted defiantly to Biden's debate comments in September about giving Brazil $20 billion to protect the Amazon, tweeting, "What some have yet not understood is that Brazil has changed. Today, its president, unlike the left, no longer accepts bribes, criminal demarcations, or unfounded threats. Our sovereignty is non-negotiable." That's what Bolsonaro said. Yeah. I mean, it's time the United States takes definitive action on climate change. And part of that action should be to stop being the world's police immediately, if not sooner, as my mom would say. Let's see. I think that is all I'm going to cover today. Yeah, guys, I'm going to be back. I'm going to be back tomorrow at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time with Jim Massa. And we will be talking about climate change at 11 a.m. So come join me tomorrow for some climate change talks. I am going to come back, I think, in a few minutes with another video talking about some politics. And I will be live on Rockfin and YouTube. Thank you, Sweet Leaf. I appreciate that. Sweet Leaf says, "By the way, Papa Bear, appreciate you being here to bring us together." Ken Lundgren says, "Love the glitches as long as they're not YouTube censorship." Exactly. No channel necessarily is perfect. Rockfin is not perfect. However, Rockfin does not run ads, nor does Rockfin censor me or suppress me. So let's try and support that as much as we can. All right, guys. Thank you so much for your eyes, your ears, and your conscience. Until next time, peace.